The member for Mirrabooka.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. I also rise to speak on the budget bills that are before the House today. And I welcome the opportunity to speak on these bills and speak on another outstanding budget from the McGowan Labor government. It is a great delight to have the opportunity to speak, and of course I think there's a wide range of things that one could speak about when considering the content of this budget. And so the challenge, I think, lies in concentrating on a few things because there are so many excellent initiatives and so much that I can see will assist people in my electorate of Mirrabooka and indeed all around the state. But before I start talking about specific things in this budget, I do think it's worth remembering the context that we're in, and it is easy to forget that we have just come through a global pandemic since early 2020, so just a mere 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And the circumstances surrounding that are easy for us to forget. The uncertainty, the instability, the fact that we were really in uncharted territory, not just in Australia but around the world, in terms of how we would respond, not just to the health crisis that the pandemic presented, but clearly the impact on the economy and the impact on our society more broadly. So quite a dramatic set of events, and yet it is easy to forget, I think, that context, but I think it's essential that we remember, because really it does underline the great success of this government in navigating what are extreme circumstances and now here in 2022 delivering a budget that's not only economically sound, a remarkable outcome given we've lived through the pandemic and given the mess that was left, the financial mess that was left by the former Liberal National Government. So that we've delivered an economically sound budget, but one that's also during the period of time also contributed significant funds to the health system and to our community so that we could come through that pandemic with not just a strong economy but a strong health system and indeed a strong society. And I think to date we've invested a total of $11.2 billion in COVID responses, with an additional $1.6 billion in this budget. So a significant investment in navigating what have been once-in-a-century circumstances. We inherited from the former government an enormous debt, yet through all that we've been able to navigate to deliver what is an outstanding budget. And as others have said before me, it is truly a Labor budget. It's a budget that continues the work of repairing the debt and deficit that was left by the Liberal National Government. And this is a government that's worked on improving the finances of the state. And it's done that because having sensible financial management means we've got the opportunity then to invest in a great future for this state. So we don't just manage the economy for the sake of it, but we do that, we don't just manage the budget for the sake of it, but we do that so we can then invest in this state and invest in the future. We can invest in building a strong and diversified economy for the future. We can fund our schools, our hospitals to be strong and effective. And we can, most importantly, provide a strong safety net for those in the community who are most vulnerable and who need it most. So this is a great Labor budget, and it is worth remembering, Acting Speaker, that it's only ever Labor governments that have at the heart of what we do a prosperous economy, a fair society and a better life for all the West Australians. And that, members, is really at the heart of the difference between Labor governments and Liberal National governments. It's Labor that's committed to making our state, our economy and our society prosper and grow, not just for us, but for the future generations of West Australians who will come after us. So while in Western Australia we can look back over recent history and we know that the Liberals and Nationals in government squandered the opportunities that they were given through the previous mining boom. They wasted an opportunity to build something substantial for future generations. That is not an opportunity that this government will miss, and I am very proud to be a part of a government that understands that as part of our really important mission. This budget is delivering for everyday people in Western Australia. By delivering a $400 energy credit to every household in Western Australia, the McGowan Labor government is helping everyday people meet cost of living pressures. The $400 payment will benefit everyone. It'll be delivered when people need it most and without the need to apply or to qualify. It'll apply in people's bills from the 1st of July this year. This is an outstanding initiative which will provide people on average with 3 months relief from their energy bills, providing much needed relief to families and to our households. It follows the success of the $600 energy credit, which was paid from the 1st of November 2020. This announcement has been very well received in my electorate of Mirrabooka. And along with the program to ensure that households have access to free rapid antigen tests, the McGowan government is providing WA families with real, practical help in meeting the cost of living pressures that they are experiencing. Acting Speaker, I wanted to also talk a little bit about the investments in this budget in the area of health, and others before me have also made comments about that, and it is significant. This is a government that has been responding to the pandemic and all of the pressures that that's brought about in our health and mental health in this state. But this budget continues to deliver on the biggest ever investment in WA's public health system. And as others before me have discussed, there's a $252 million program to improve access to emergency care. There's a $1.6 billion worth of investment in health and mental health infrastructure over the next 4 years, which importantly includes the Joondalup Health Campus, of great importance to the people that I represent in Mirrabooka. And we've also allocated $1.8 billion for the new Women's and Babies Hospital, which I know is a significant piece of infrastructure that will deliver for many generations an excellent facility for the birth of new babies in this state. Our government has delivered 342 new hospital beds, with a total of 530 beds to be delivered before the end of the year. A significant investment into the health of our state. We've been growing the health workforce. It's increased in the last 2 years by 15.6%. It's the largest growth in our health workforce on record. And it's a clear demonstration of our commitment to ensuring the health and the welfare of West Australians is addressed. It is, I think, a significant achievement given the constraints on the labour market during the last few years, brought mainly about the closed international borders and the demand for labour internally in the state. But in that context, a significant growth in our health workforce. I'm particularly excited about the investments into mental health in this budget, into alcohol and other drug services in Western Australia. I know that the additional funding, $181 million in additional funding to the Mental Health Commission, will be very well received, not just in Mirrabooka, but indeed around the state. But I do know this is a key concern for the people in my electorate. People regularly raise with me that they wish to ensure that we have appropriate supports in place for people who need it, who are struggling with mental health issues. And that's not always because they themselves have particular concerns or people in their family. It's because people understand that there's been a growing demand for mental health services and they want to ensure that we've got appropriate services to meet those needs. It does come up regularly in my discussions with constituents as well as my discussions in schools and other places that are providing support to families and young people in particular. So these initiatives will be very well received as part of a package of response that this government is delivering that will provide additional mental health support. And I think we all understand that addressing mental health requires a range of strategies. It requires a range of different settings to be able to provide the support that people need for them and for their families. So I, along with others, welcome this additional funding commitment and all that this government is doing to support those who face mental health challenges in our community. I also want to particularly acknowledge the investment of an additional $3.7 million to establish the Aboriginal health practitioners profession here in WA. and also the investment of $6.1 million, which has been allocated to continue a range of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder prevention initiatives. I'm really proud to be part of a government that's taking seriously the systemic disadvantage that our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people face. The Aboriginal health practitioners play such an important part of how we can address the substantially poorer health outcomes that affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander in this state, but in Australia more broadly. These practitioners can work with Aboriginal people and can work with their communities, not just addressing health, but addressing the social determinants of health, which often contribute significantly to the greater likelihood of disease and illness and lower life expectancy that's experienced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I think these are important initiatives that help to ensure that our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are able to live with dignity and justice, and that we are funding important initiatives that will help them address the lower health outcomes they've experienced for some time. I did also want to include in my comments tonight an acknowledgement that along similar lines, I'm really proud to be part of a government that's providing $350 million to establish the Remote Communities Fund, which will improve water, electricity and other municipal services in remote Aboriginal communities. It is a disgraceful matter of record that the federal Conservative government renewed funding that was supporting those remote communities, and that has something that I think the opposition should be incredibly ashamed of. These are remote communities where people are experiencing systemic disadvantage, and removing the funding that supported them in those communities, I think, incredibly outrageous decision. And so I'm really pleased to be part of a government that's seeking to reverse that by creating a fund of $350 million. And I hope this time next week we have a new federal government, and I hope that federal government will match that funding to ensure that we do provide appropriate support to our First Nations people so that they can live in remote communities that are so important to them, to their families and to their way of life. Acting Speaker, we have many excellent schools in the electorate of Mirrabooka, and I did want to go on and talk about those schools and about some of the commitments that have been made to education in this budget. It is a budget, this budget's just one piece of work in a lot of work that this government is doing to ensure that our schools are equipped to assist our young people. There's schools that in my electorate of Mirrabooka, and indeed all around the state, do incredibly important work to ensure our young people get the education that they need to succeed. I believe really strongly that our schools should be supported to do their work, not just to deliver education, skills and opportunity, but also their important work in transforming the lives of young people and giving them hope. Our public schools in the electorate of Mirrabooka are doing an outstanding job, and I want to commend them for all of the important work that they do. It is particularly important in my electorate of Mirrabooka, where many people come from migrant or refugee backgrounds, that we provide a specialist support and assistance so that people are able to get the education that they need.
Member, given the time, I will vacate the chair until the ringing of the bells.
Honourable members, the Acting Speaker.
I believe the member for Mirrabooka was on her feet.
Speaker, just before we broke for dinner, I had moved on to considering some of the education outcomes in this budget, and so I will pick up my train of thought from there. As I was saying, we have many excellent schools in the electorate of Mirrabooka, and in fact all around the state. They are doing important work to help our young people get the education and skills that they need to succeed. Like many members in this place, I'm passionate about our schools being able to deliver education, skills, opportunity and hope to our young people. Our public schools offer the opportunity to transform the lives of our young people, and they're particularly important in my electorate, where many people come from migrant and refugee backgrounds. So I'm really pleased that this budget continues the important work of investing in our local schools. I'm excited about the Performing Arts Centre, which is to be built at Balga Senior High School, and I know the whole school community, and in fact the whole community in Balga, is looking forward to this work commencing. It will be a great community resource and it'll provide a really great boost to this fantastic local school. In addition, our government's providing funding to schools like North Balga Primary School, Rawlinson Primary School and Waddington Primary School so they can install solar panels. I think this is a really great example of the approach of the McGowan Labor government and the approach we're taking to teach our children about climate change and renewable energy, while also just taking practical steps that will help those schools to reduce the costs of electricity. I'm also very pleased about the additional funding that's been allocated to support students with additional education needs. So $31.9 million to support more students with additional learning needs through expanding the education adjustment allocation, and $18.2 million investment in specialist learning programs for students with autism spectrum disorder. In my discussions with school leaders in Mirrabooka, I know that they are very concerned about the increasing incidence and complexity of autism and other special learning needs. So providing this additional learning support will ensure that those students get the support that they need to be able to make a great start as well. Our local schools are achieving excellent results for our young people, and this additional funding will particularly assist them to continue to do that great work. Acting Speaker, our government's also committed to ensuring that Western Australians have access to the skills and training that will equip them for jobs, and that industry will have skilled workers that they need to build our economy. Balga TAFE will be upgraded as part of the biggest TAFE capital works program in Western Australian history. $40.1 million has been allocated for the improvements to Balga TAFE, which will include a new multi-storey specialist teaching block to provide technology-enabled classrooms for building and construction trades, for community services, for general education, hairdressing and adult migrant education. Can I have a short extension, please?
Extension granted.
I'm a strong advocate for our TAFE system. It provides outstanding skills and education opportunities, not just for skill leavers and young people. TAFE also plays a role in supporting many people to navigate career changes in later life, or assisting people, often women, back into the workforce after career breaks. It performs a critical role in ensuring training is relevant to the needs of industry, and it's the cornerstone for achieving a strong economy. The McGowan Labor government's delivered free and low-fee training opportunities to so many West Australians through the lower fees local skills program. We're continuing to invest in making sure that TAFE is affordable for people who want to go there. We're investing $38.4 million to keep TAFE fees lower for 210 high-priority courses. This program is making training affordable, and it's helping people find and keep work. Our government's also providing $25 million to assist TAFEs to purchase new state-of-the-art equipment to ensure that students, apprentices, trainees will train on the equipment that will then be used in their industry. I'm very proud of the investments that we're making into TAFE, the investments we're making into training, and what that means for providing not just young people, but many people with the opportunity to get a skilled, well-paid job. These initiatives are great not just for Balga TAFE, but for TAFEs right around Western Australia. It is also great news for ensuring we build a strong and diversified economy for today, but also for the generations of West Australians that will come after us. It's also great news for jobs, which remain a central concern to the people of Mirrabooka and indeed right around Western Australia and Australia. We need a strong economy to deliver the good, well-paid jobs that everyday people rely on. Acting Speaker, this government has an outstanding record on jobs. We've created more than 160,000 jobs since the McGowan government was elected in 2017. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in Australia. Our participation rate is high, with more women in the workforce than ever before. A good job is the cornerstone for a good life, and I'm proud to be part of a government that's committed to making sure that Western Australians have the jobs they need. I'm also very pleased that this budget continues the excellent work of this government in building a prosperous and a diversified economy. While mining served us well and will continue to do so, our long-term fortunes rely on having a vision and a plan for future prosperity based on a diversified economy. As well as investing significantly in diversifying the economy, with a record $1.3 billion, our government is also investing in infrastructure that will help drive future productivity and economic growth. Our significant investment in infrastructure like ports, into roads and rail will help make our state more prosperous in the future. I also, in talking about diversifying the economy, wanted to talk a little bit about our climate change initiatives. These are not just good news for anyone who cares about the future of the planet, which seems to be everyone except for the current federal Liberal national government, the only ones that continue to deny there's a place for climate change. But climate change initiatives are really good news for the economy as well. Now, the federal national Liberal government's always presented action on climate change as a kind of binary choice. You can either have a strong economy or you can take action to address climate change. But our government understands that confronting the reality of climate change head-on makes good economic sense, that in fact it's not a binary choice, but that addressing climate change will help ensure that we do have a strong economy into the future. So whilst the current federal government might wish to be Luddites, and they've showed a dogged sort of determination to ignore the realities of climate change, I really welcome the leadership that this government's showing in this area. So the announcement of a $500 million boost to the Climate Action Fund, taking the total commitment to $1.25 billion, is a really important step that will allow us to respond to projects that will assist in the transition to a low-carbon economy in the future. The contribution of funds to accelerate the use of low and zero emission vehicles is a positive step to encourage more people to take those steps. The investment of $30 million to boost the Just Transition Plan to support the end of native logging in 2024 is also important in managing transitions in our economy that confront the reality of change. And an investment of $31 million for climate action research and planning to help reduce emissions across various sectors is a sensible way of assisting all parts of the economy address this challenge head-on. I think the federal Liberal national government has set a disgraceful example on the question of climate change by denying for most of their term the reality of it and what it would mean for everyday people and their communities. By dragging coal into the House of Representatives, presenting it as a sort of stark choice, they've done nothing to serve the people of this country and the people of Western Australia with confronting the reality of the transitions that changing climate will bring on all of us. Burying one's head in the sand doesn't diminish the reality that there is change happening. Businesses in this state, large businesses right around the country, understand the reality of needing to adapt their businesses to meet the changing needs of our climate and the changing expectations of international markets. And the federal government's done no service to anyone in denying its reality. Our largest and most successful companies are embracing the reality of climate change, and so is this government. Acting Speaker, as I said at the beginning of my comments, this is a very Labor budget. It makes life better for everyday people through sensible initiatives to help cost of living pressures. It builds a strong economy, one that's diversified, that sets us up for the future. And importantly, this budget helps to build a fair society. Again, I'm very pleased with the work that's being undertaken in this budget to protect some of the most vulnerable people in our community. The McGowan government will invest an additional $408 million towards housing and homelessness measures in this state budget. This additional money takes the housing and homelessness investment from the last two state budgets to $1.3 billion. It builds on the commitment in last year's budget to invest records amount in social housing and deliver 3,300 additional homes. I know that everyone wants a place to call home. It is an important issue for the people that I represent in Mirrabooka, and I'm very pleased that our government is making record investments in this area. Only a few weeks ago, I visited 3 new homes in Balga with Minister Carey, which had just been completed and was soon to become a home for someone who needs it. I also feel very strongly about the work we're doing to address family and domestic violence. And so I welcome the continued commitments from this government to fund a range of family and domestic violence prevention and support measures. And I want to congratulate the Minister for the Prevention of Family and Domestic Violence for her excellent work in this area, and commend her for the increases in funding that she outlined in question time that have come as a result of this government's serious commitment to addressing what we know is a significant issue in society. Acting Speaker, I'm very proud to be part of the McGowan Labor government, and this budget is a testament to our values as a party and our values as a government. Labor governments have always been the ones that changed our state and our nation to make it better. It's our mission as a Labor government to make life better for everyday people. And we do this by building the wealth and success of this great state. We do this by sharing that wealth so everyday people can lead better lives. And we do this by using that wealth to lift up the most vulnerable in our society. This budget demonstrates our commitment to that vision and the vision of a fair and prosperous society. The story of this budget is not just about the $400 energy credit that will help all West Australian families. And the story of this budget is not just about the sound financial management that is the envy of Australia and possibly the world. The story of this budget is not just about the massive investment in infrastructure that will lay a foundation for productivity and economic success for generations to come. And it's not just a story about record investments in health and significant investments into education. All of these are good stories, but the story of this budget is that this is a government that's committed to delivering to the people of Western Australia. That this government has the maturity, the foresight and the discipline to deliver for the people that we represent, not just for today, but for the future as well. This is a government that has at its heart a value for fairness and equality and economic prosperity that includes us all, no matter who we are or where we come from. And with that, Acting Speaker, I'll commend the bill to the House.